There's a moment most people never talk about. You push yourself up from a chair and you pause. Not because you want to, because your body needs a second before it is ready to trust the ground beneath your feet. You look down when you walk, not to check for something in your way. You look down because somewhere in the back of your mind, you are not sure your feet are going to land where you expect them to. You reach for the wall before you turn the corner. Not because the corner is dangerous, because you stop trusting the space between you and whatever comes next. If that is your life right now, stay with this until the end. Because what your legs are doing, that hesitation, that drift, that slow creep toward the wall, it is not a leg problem. It is not an age problem. There's a precise reason your body stopped moving the way it used to. And once you understand that reason, something is going to click. You're going to see clearly why every exercise you tried made no difference. Why the supplements did nothing. Why your body kept drifting no matter how careful you were. Because every solution you tried was aimed at the wrong target. Most people are told the same things. Be cautious. Move slowly. Try some balance work. It is probably just part of getting older. So they go home. They do what they were told. They wait for something to change. It does not change. After a while, they stop mentioning the walking to anyone. They stop expecting answers. They start adjusting their whole life around the limitation. No more solo trips to the market. No more evening walks. Furniture becomes a travel route from one room to the next, and the thought settles in quietly like dust on a shelf. This is just what life looks like now. But that thought is wrong. There's a cause behind what you are feeling. It is specific, it is findable, and it is something your body has been trying to signal for a long time. By the time this is done, you're going to understand what that cause is, how to check yourself right now at home, and what you could do every single day in about 8 minutes to start reversing it. There are also 2 additional exercises at the very end of this, training exercises that work on the part of your brain responsible for keeping you upright and balanced. Those exercises are for the people who stay all the way through. But before anything else, there is one idea you need to hold in your mind, because this idea changes the way you see everything else. Picture 3 different people standing in front of you. All 3 of them cannot walk a straight line. The first is a man in his early 70s who had a stroke just days ago. He sways. He veers. He grabs at whatever is near him. The second is a man at an outdoor gathering who has been drinking steadily for a few hours. He also sways. He also veers. He also reaches for support. The third is a child just over a year old, taking some of her very first steps across a living room carpet. She too wobbles. She too drifts sideways. She too reaches for the nearest piece of furniture. 3 people. Same wobble. Same drift. Same reaching. But any medical professional looking at those 3 would immediately give 3 entirely different explanations. The man who had the stroke lost blood flow to one side of his brain. The man who has been drinking has a chemical in his system that is slowing his brain's processing. The child's brain has not finished developing the wiring that handles movement. The wobble looks the same from the outside. The cause is completely different in each case. And that difference is the entire point. If you do not know what is actually causing your drift, you will spend months and years working on the wrong thing. Here is what happens most often. Someone in their late 60s or 70s starts losing steadiness on their feet. They assume it is their legs. They do leg strengthening. They take calcium and vitamin supplements. They see a therapist who works on their hips, their knees, their ankles. Time passes. Nothing improves. And the reason nothing improves is that the legs were never the problem. The legs are carrying you the same way they have for 7 or 8 decades. They're not failing. They are waiting. Waiting for instructions that are arriving too slowly. Walking is not a stable activity. Most people do not realize this. Every single step you take is actually a small, controlled fall. Your weight tips forward past the point where your balance can hold it. For a fraction of a second, there is nothing underneath you. Then your other foot swings out and catches you just before you go down. A tip and a catch. A tip and a catch. Every step, all day, your entire life. You have taken hundreds of millions of steps without ever thinking about the timing. But the timing is the whole thing. If the catch comes a fraction of a second too late, you stumble. If it is always a fraction of a second late, you drift. If it keeps getting slower, you fall. The part of your brain that manages that timing sits at the base of your skull. It is compact, taking up roughly a tenth of your brain's total size. But packed inside that small space are more individual brain cells than in the entire rest of your brain combined. Every fraction of a second, it receives signals from your eyes, your inner ear, your muscles, and the pressure sensors of your joints. It processes all of that information simultaneously and sends precise instructions to your legs. Where to place the foot, how much force to use, when exactly to swing the next step forward. When this part of your brain is receiving enough fuel, you walk without thinking. When the fuel drops, the processing slows, the catch comes late, and you start to drift. Your brain accounts for only about 2% of your body's total weight, but consumes roughly 20% of all the oxygen your blood carries. It is by far the most fuel-hungry organ in your body, and it does not tolerate even small reductions in that fuel supply. You do not need a significant blockage for your balance center to start struggling. A slow, quiet reduction in blood flow, building over months and years, is more than enough. And once you understand what is choking off that fuel supply, you may feel frustrated that no one looked for it sooner. Before getting to the cause, notice whether any of these other things are happening to you. Because when the same fuel supply is failing, it tends to show up in 4 different places at once. Most people, and most doctors, treat them as 4 separate problems. They are not. The first is short-term memory gaps. You walk into the kitchen with a clear purpose and arrive with nothing. You begin a sentence, and a specific word simply does not appear. It was there a second ago, and now it is gone. But ask you about something from 20 or 30 years ago, and you remember it without any effort. That gap is not random. Short-term memory depends on a very high level of fuel. The area of your brain that handles it draws from the same supply line that feeds your balance center. When that supply line narrows, the memory area runs short. The information is still in your brain. The fuel needed to retrieve it is not making it through. The second is an afternoon drop. You are clear and functional in the morning. Sometime around the early afternoon, something shifts. Focus disappears. Thinking becomes heavy. It is not about sleep because you slept. It is not about activity level. It hits at roughly the same time every day, like a door closing in your mind. There is a structure in your brain stem that maintains your waking alertness. Same supply line. In the afternoon, your blood pressure tends to drop slightly on its own, and the already reduced supply to that structure drops a little more. The alertness signal weakens. The door closes. The third is what most people call brain fog, a sense that thinking requires more effort than it should. Like every thought has to push through something heavy and resistant. This comes from regions at the back of the brain that process your visual information and your sense of where you are in space. Same supply line, same narrowing, same shortage. For symptoms, a walking drift, a memory gap, an afternoon wall, a thinking fog, they have been treated as 4 separate aging complaints. They are one narrowed supply line showing up in 4 different locations. If you're living with all 4 of these, make a note of it. Think about when each of them started. Think about whether they have been getting gradually worse over time at the same pace. Now here is the cause, and this is specifically what gets missed. 2 blood vessels feed all 4 of the brain regions just described. The balance center, the memory area, the alertness structure, and the visual spatial processing regions all draw their fuel from the same 2 vessels. These vessels are called the vertebral arteries, and they are unlike any other major blood vessel in the body. Every other significant blood vessel in your body runs through soft tissue. The tissue cushions it, shifts around it, gives it room. But these 2 vessels run through bone. They travel upward through your neck, passing through small openings in the cervical vertebrae, the bones that make up the back of your neck. 1 bone at a time, like thread pulled through a series of beads. 6 bones, 6 openings, each vessel climbing toward the base of the skull. At the top 2 vertebrae, each vessel makes a sharp bend. It wraps around the uppermost neck bone, the one your skull rests on, lying exposed in a groove on the bone surface. Then it pushes through a dense sheet of fibrous tissue and enters the skull. Once inside, the two vessels merge into a single channel. That channel is the sole supply line for all four regions. There is no secondary supply, no backup route. Because these vessels travel through bone, anything that reduces the size of those openings compresses the vessel. And the most common thing that reduces those openings is bone spurs. If you have spent significant portions of your adult life seated, in front of a screen or a desk or a television, your head has likely drifted forward at your shoulders. For every inch the head moves forward, the neck bones must support approximately 10 additional pounds of load. 2 inches forward means 20 extra pounds of pressure on the neck. 3 inches means 30. The body responds to sustained pressure by growing bone in the loaded area. That is a protective mechanism, but in this location it creates a serious problem. The new bone forms around the openings the vessels pass through. The openings shrink. The vessels get compressed. The fuel supply to all four brain regions gradually decreases year by year. At the very top of the neck, small muscles connecting the uppermost vertebrae to the base of the skull become chronically tight from tension and long-term forward posture. When they contract into a fixed spasm, they press directly onto the vessel at its most exposed point, the bend where it lies bare against the bone. They're not just reducing flow. They're also sending distorted signals to the balance center about where the head is in space. The balance center is getting less fuel and receiving wrong information at the same time. Starved and misled. There's also a large muscle on each side of the neck running from just behind the ear down to the collarbone. When this muscle becomes chronically shortened and tight, it pulls the head forward and downward, forcing an unnatural bend at the top of the spine and compressing the vessels more. This is why the walking changed. Not weak muscles, not aging joints. A blood vessel being compressed by bone and tight tissue, reducing fuel to the precise part of the brain that controls the timing of every step you take. And this is specifically why standard testing often misses it. Brain imaging is performed while the patient lies flat and completely still. The compression that matters happens in an upright position, during movement, during head rotation. The skin does not capture it. The results come back unremarkable. The doctor reports nothing found, and the person walks out of the clinic still drifting, still reaching for walls, with no explanation and no direction. There is an imaging approach that measures flow while the head is in motion. It can see the compression. It is rarely used in this context because the connection between neck vessel compression and walking problems is not part of the standard clinical framework for balance disorders. Here are 4 ways to check yourself right now. The first check: walk heel to toe in a straight line. Place one foot directly in front of the other for 10 steps. Use a finger against the wall for safety if needed. If you step off the line more than once, the balance center is struggling. If you drift consistently to the left, the vessel on the left is receiving less fuel. If you drift right, the right side is the weaker supply. The second check: sit in a chair. Start a timer. Stand without pushing off with your hands. Walk 10 feet forward. Turn around. Walk back. Sit down. Stop the timer. Under 10 seconds is healthy. Over 12 is a signal worth paying attention to. The turn in the middle is the most demanding part. Changing direction requires the fastest processing from the balance center, which makes it the most sensitive indicator of how well it is functioning. The third check: stand with both feet together and your arms at your sides. Hold that position for 30 seconds with your eyes open. Then close your eyes and hold for another 30 seconds. If you sway noticeably with your eyes closed but held steady with them open, your visual system has been doing the work your balance center cannot. Your eyes have been compensating. When you close them, the compensation disappears and the truth of the situation becomes visible. The fourth check: close your eyes and march in place for 50 steps. Lifting the knees, arms moving naturally. After 50 steps, open your eyes and look at where you are standing relative to where you started. If you have rotated more than 30 to 45 degrees in one direction, that side is receiving less signal from the balance center. Now for the exercises. For movements done in sequence that target the specific tissues compressing the vessels. Work through them slowly. Sit upright in a chair. Feet flat on the floor. hands resting on your thighs. Close your eyes and take 2 slow breaths. Breathe in for a count of 4. Out for a count of 6. Let the shoulders drop on the exhale. The first movement targets the lower portion of the neck. Let your chin drop slowly toward your chest. Reach one hand behind your neck and feel along the back of the cervical spine until you find the bone that protrudes most prominently. That is the lowest vertebra of the neck. Place the pad of your finger on the side of that bone. Begin turning your head slowly to the right. As you turn, apply gentle pressure with your finger in the same direction. You will reach a point where the turn wants to stop, a kind of soft resistance deep in the tissue. Stop there. Hold for 3 seconds. Return to center slowly. Maintain the finger pressure for 2 additional seconds after returning, then release. Repeat to the left side. Then move one level lower and repeat both directions again. This addresses the area where the vessels enter the openings in the lower vertebrae. The second movement targets the large muscle running from behind the ear to the collarbone. Place your right hand flat against your right collarbone and press firmly downward, anchoring the lower end of the muscle. Slowly tilt your head toward your left shoulder. Lift your chin very slightly as you do. You will feel a deep stretch running along the right side of the neck from the ear region down to the chest. That is the target tissue. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds. Breathe slowly and steadily through the hold. Release. Repeat on the opposite side. This removes the forward pull on the head that increases compression at the top of the spine. The third movement addresses the small muscles at the base of the skull. Bring both hands behind your head and place your fingertips at the point where the base of the skull meets the top of the neck. You can feel 2 small ridges of bone. The target muscles sit between and just below those ridges. Press firmly with your fingertips. Do not rub or massage. Simply hold steady pressure on the area for 30 seconds. It may be sore. That soreness is the chronic spasm in those muscles. Sustained pressure releases the spasm gradually. The vessel lying in its groove at that location begins to decompress. Hold. Breathe slowly. Release. Repeat twice more for 30 seconds each. This releases the compression at the most exposed section of the vessel path. The fourth movement opens the space where the vessels enter the skull. Sit tall. Look straight forward. Without lowering your chin, draw your head straight backward, as though a hand is pressing gently on your forehead. The movement is purely horizontal. You will feel a stretch at the very top of the back of the neck, right where the skull meets the spine. Hold 5 seconds. Release fully. Do this 10 times. Each repetition gently creates more space at the point where the vessels make their final entry into the brain. These 4 movements work from the base of the neck upward. The first opens the entry points along the lower vertebrae. The second releases the forward pull that drives the compression. The third decompresses the most vulnerable section of the vessel path. The fourth opens the doorway into the skull. 3 minutes each morning. 3 minutes each evening. Most people who are consistent with this begin to notice changes within 10 to 14 days. The afternoon mental drop starts to ease. The steadiness while walking begins to return. The brain fog becomes thinner. The improvement is gradual, but it is real, and it continues to build. Now for the 2 additional exercises that retrain the balance center itself. Restoring the fuel supply is one part of the process. But years of reduced fuel weaken the signal pathways inside the balance center. Those pathways rebuild only when they are given challenges they cannot yet handle easily. The stumbling feeling while doing these exercises is not a problem. It is the point. That difficulty is the balance center working at the edge of its capacity. Every day, the edge moves. The first retraining exercise asks your body to do 3 things at 3 different rhythms simultaneously. Stand with your feet hip-width apart. Begin rotating your hips in a slow, smooth circle. While your hips are moving, step one foot in a wider circle around the other, moving at a different pace than the hips. While both of those are happening, tap your hands against your thighs in a rhythm that has no connection to what the lower body is doing. 3 rhythms. 3 speeds, completely independent. The first time you try this, it may feel impossible. You may manage 10 seconds before it all falls apart. That is exactly right. Tomorrow, try for 15. The week after, aim for 30. Within 4 weeks, the movements begin to smooth out and synchronize. That smoothing is new neural pathways forming inside the balance center. The second retraining exercise trains the connection between the inner ear and the visual system during rotation. Stand facing a wall. Choose a small, specific point at eye level and fix your gaze on it. Take 3 steps and then rotate your entire body in a full circle. Keep your eyes on the chosen point for as long as the rotation allows. Then find it again the instant the turn is complete. Dizziness balance center encountering signals it does not yet know how to resolve. Each session, that becomes smaller. The computer is learning. The progression over 4 weeks. In the first week, walk heel to toe along a wall. In the second week, walk heel to toe while slowly turning your head from side to side. In the third week, walk heel to toe with your eyes closed. In the fourth week, add the 2 retraining exercises. By the end of 8 weeks, the drift is measurably reduced. The steps become narrower and more controlled. The reaching for walls becomes less necessary and eventually stops. 8 minutes a day. 3 for the neck, 5 for the brain retraining. That is the entire investment. There is one more thing worth understanding. The standard medical system sees these 4 symptoms, the drift, the memory gaps, the afternoon wall, the brain fog, and routes each one to a different specialist. A neurologist for the balance, a cardiologist for the circulation, an orthopedist for the legs, an ear specialist for the dizziness, for separate consultations, for separate treatment plans. And not one of them is looking at the vessel in the neck that connects all 4. Not because they're negligent, because the connection between cervical vessel compression and this particular cluster of symptoms is not yet standard clinical thinking. You now understand the connection. You know what to look for. You know what to do about it. The fuel line to your balance center can be opened. The wiring weakened by years of reduced flow can be rebuilt. The drift can be reversed. The steps can become sure again. The walls can stop being a travel route. Your legs have been carrying you your whole life. They are still capable. They have just been waiting for the instructions to arrive on time again.